Here today we have Iyia Liu, who is one of New Zealand's leading businesswomen. She is such a powerhouse and has started and sold 5 businesses over the last 15 years, 10 years?
8 years.
8 years. And I'm so excited to be having a chat with her today.
I know your general, I know that you're the co-founder of Crimson, but how did it all happen? I know that it's like $1 billion valuation now, but I feel like sometimes it's hard to be like, where did you start?
It's, I think, such an interesting story for me because my journey with business was so unplanned. I was 18 years old, I was doing pre-med at Auckland Uni, and I thought for my whole life before that point that I was going to become a doctor. And so when we started Crimson, we basically started it to solve a problem that, we'd experienced ourselves. So answering the question of what do I actually do after high school and how do I achieve my potential was the whole concept behind it. And we just started to solve that problem, and things kind of snowballed quite quickly because I guess there were lots of people who wanted to answer that question too. And so, at the time, I was 18, knew nothing about business. My co-founder knew nothing about business too, and it was just this constant problem solving every single day to figure out how to make the next week better than the last. But I don't know, was your journey quite similar because you started quite young too?
It's kind of the same. I feel like I came out of uni, I must have been 21, and I remember my goal was I've seen these e-commerce businesses online, I'm just going to buy a few units of inventory and see if I can sell them. My goal was to sell 10 units a week. I was like, that'll be cool to have $300 extra in my, $300 extra a week. And then we did, I think, 7 million by the end of the second year, which for me,
that's so crazy.
For someone trying to make $300 a week, I was like, that's not bad.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I think one of the most inspiring things about watching you along your journey, because we went to school in a similar area, and I've kind of been following along Iyya's journey since I feel just when it got started. And what's been so amazing is just seeing how you've been able to kind of learn all these new skills and become an expert in so many different crafts as you go. What was that like? Did you how did you problem solve everything every single day? Starting from buying 10 units of a product, then figuring out how to actually market it and how to actually dispatch it and get the stuff out the door. What was that like if you think back to when you started?
I think when you, so when you're young, there's not a lot of people in the same boat as you. There's just no one to really ask or seek advice from. So you just end up Googling a lot of things, I think. So pretty much everything I just found online or just trying to trial and error. I feel like at the start, that's the only way to learn. And as a result, I learned how to do customer service because I had to. I learned how to print shipping labels. I learned how to dispatch. I learned Facebook ads, I learned how to do viral content. You learn all the things because ultimately if somebody leaves your company, you should at least have an understanding of every element of the business. If you're not doing it, you should at least understand. So.
One of the things that I feel a lot of people ask me about is not just how do you learn the skills that you need, but also how do you feel confident enough to actually use those skills and talk about it and build a team and lead a team when you're so young and new and fresh at it. What was it like for you? Do you remember the first time you felt confident, and do you remember the first time you felt you're questioning your confidence?
I don't think I have ever thought about confidence. I think it's one of the things that's okay, we are making these sales and this needs to be done. And we are running, I don't have enough time to do it. And this person's running out of time to do it. So then we need to get another person to do it. So I don't think I've ever thought about it in a confidence sense, but more of a sense these are the things that need to be done. We just need to do them in order to reach the common goal of generating more sales and expanding and growing our audience, building our community. So I think it's more out of a necessity rather than am I confident enough?
Yeah. I actually really agree with you too. I feel for a lot of people, we think so much about, what we're going to and how we're going to do it and how others might perceive it being done. But actually the most important thing is actually just doing the work,
totally.
doing it. And so I guess in my journey as well, the biggest part of me being able to continue to evolve as an individual as a company grew was knowing that the most important thing was that results mattered. So showing that we could create the results, showing that we could create the value was more important than me feeling I was confident enough to be able to create the value. And so that really I think that was the driving force behind me being able to think can we do this, or it's more how do we do this instead of can we do it.
Agreed. Yeah. I think so many people, they overthink they probably before they've done the thing. So then they overthink and then they freak themselves out and go, can I actually do it? It's like, actually, when you're in that situation, you don't have a choice. You just have to do it.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
What was like the scariest experience that you ever had in business? Like, was there one thing that like jumps out as being like the fuck, this is crazy moment? Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
It's so funny because I've been running businesses for 9 years now. Even like I've had bad things just happen the whole time. Not bad things, but there's always going to be a problem. Sometimes you're smooth sailing for several months and then a $100,000 shipment goes missing, or so it's just, it's just annoying. You're like, where is the shipment? Or a payment. I remember I paid a supplier like 60 grand. She was like, I don't have it. I was like, well, who's got it? Who's got the payment?
Did you find it?
The intermediary bank had it. But then they wouldn't transfer it back. For weeks, I think 3 weeks, we were like, where's the payment? And then as a result, I couldn't get my inventory because the supplier wouldn't release it. All things go wrong. That was not even the first business. This is like the fourth business, like my fourth business that happened. Just things always go wrong. I remember also when I was running Celebration Box, it was our 6th week after launching, and we got this huge influx of orders. I think we had like 3,000 orders in the 6th week.
Wow.
I was like, okay, was not anticipating that amount of orders. We don't have the space, we don't have the staff, we don't have the raw materials, but we're gonna try. And then as a result, we just got heaps of bad media. I'm just like, I don't know how I could have avoided that, really. So
I think that's one of the like tricky parts too, right? Like being able to feel like you can take risks and you can like push yourself to like scale your business, but at the same time, like also knowing that there are so many critics, like people who are always watching and like looking out for you to do something that's like, that they can kind of jump onto and like say went wrong or say was really bad. Like how do you like deal with that, or like how do you juggle like continuing to be ambitious, but at the same time, like having the reservation or like not having the reservation maybe of people who might be like super critical?
Well, it is quite scary because for the first, let's say 5 years of my career, I always had positive media. Yeah. And then that happened. I had all this negative media, and then just people from the members of the public would just leave me these like death threats and message me for ages afterwards. I was like, guys, they just like messed up a shipment. Like, I deserve to die? I'm like, come on, I don't need death threats.
That's so crazy.
I feel like people want to find something to hate on.
Yeah.
Like, and if a community of people are hating on something, they feel like they're in that community. But then also being in business for that long, I think you also realize over time that you just have to ignore it. Because otherwise, if you saw a bad comment and it made you stop running your business, so you're going to get heaps of bad comments. It's just inevitable.
That's so true.
There's just always people complaining.
Totally. And I think it's also really hard to please everyone. Like something that I learned through like a really inspiring business person that I've like watched lots of content from and have like been lucky to spend a bit of time with is that you can't be speaking to everyone. You can't please everyone in your business with whatever your product is or your service is. And so like talking to your customer and like figuring out who they are and speaking to them in the way that they want to be spoken to and giving them the value that they want is so important. How have you thought about that? Because a lot of your businesses have been really focused on like direct to consumer. Have you, like each time you've started a business, have you always like known exactly who you're chasing and like what the occasion or opportunity is for you with the product that you're chasing them for?
I feel like every business I've done shapewear, supplements, gift boxing, and hair care. I have actually tried to go for a broader audience because I feel like when you're very, very niche, it can be, I guess, a little bit more difficult to do your advertising if, let's say, you've got a really niche product. I have always tried to be like, okay, I'm going to try and target this to the general public, like gift boxes, everyone that's got a birthday, hair care, anyone that's got hair. I don't know what the question was.
Like, how do you target your audience?
How do you target your audience?
How do you know? Do you like know who they are at the start?
Do you know who your audience? Often I feel like the audiences that I go for are me.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Well, if I like the product, I'm like, I know how I would buy it. Or let's say I've seen the product and I actually did buy it, and then now I'm like, okay, well, I know how other people are going to buy it because I bought it that way. And I feel like reverse engineering a situation. Like if I see an advertisement and it made me click into it, or if I got an email and it made me convert or buy it, I think to myself, what made me buy it? What made me click into it? Is it the wording? Is it because it was a limited deadline? Is it because it was an offer?
Right.
And then I kind of use those practices within all of my own advertising.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I think actually just like reflecting on it now, something that I feel like you're quite good at is being able to like anticipate a trend before it happens. Like now I think about how common shapewear is and like how, you know, that's like such a huge industry and like most women purchase shapewear. But I feel like when you did waist trainer, it was like such an early, like it was very early on in that kind of like part of, you know, cultural evolution for like what people buy. And then the same for like tied or hair. Like I remember when, you know, one of the times previously when we caught up, you just purchased a lot of stock for that and that business was about to launch and like no one was really doing it. It was like just starting. How do you like have an intuition for what's going to be like trendy? Like where do you like, how does your brain work with like identifying opportunities like that?
Oh, I feel like for those, so I've noticed from my own experiences, just I often see things being done overseas. And if it intrigues me as a consumer, and I want to purchase that item, then I'm like, okay, well, if I want to purchase it, maybe other people will. So I've actually done that with pretty much all of my businesses. I remember I saw shapewear from the US, influencers in America promoting it, so I thought, okay, I'm going to bring that to Australasia. And so we were, I guess, like one of the first people really pushing it in Australasia. Not the first, but you know, one of the main people pushing it. Supplements, I remember when I first started doing supplements, it was only like bodybuilders and real fitness junkies taking protein powder. It wasn't a mainstream thing. So I feel like I was like, okay, this is something that everybody could take, and gyms started popping up left, right, and center. So again, I think it was the beginning of that becoming mainstream. Celebration box, again, I saw that in Aussie. So people are going crazy for this in Aussie. It doesn't actually exist in my area. So I'm going to bring it over, but do it in our own way. It wasn't exactly the same as the Australian one. And then the hair care one, I saw one US brand selling a lot of product, one Australian brand also doing really well. And I thought, well, again, no one's doing this in my area. But even if you bring it to your area, it doesn't mean you can't then expand geographically to other areas, because we ended up taking on the US, UK, and Australia. So, yeah.
That's amazing. That's so cool. I think that like just having the awareness of what people are consuming somewhere else and like how you might want to consume that where you are is like something that not a lot of people like even think about. Like maybe people do it subconsciously, but actually like realizing that that's like an opportunity, I feel like is like really cool.
Yeah, totally. But then sometimes I get comments from people saying like, okay, I want to do this business, but it's so saturated. And then I'm kind of like, well, you can actually make any business do well if you run it, if you make sure everything's set up correctly, if you're doing the advertising correctly, making sure the sales funnel is, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
So I don't think entering a saturated market is necessarily a problem.
Right.
There's so many consumers in the world. If you think about it, I'm sure you absolutely know that. There's so many people with money to spend, and even if you feel like one company has heaps of market share, people are still going to buy from the other ones.
Yeah, totally. And I think that whole like concept of people always wanting like, more, better, and then different, and then wanting more, better, and different again, like that cycle of us always wanting to consume, I think is what also drives like interest in products that might be in the same category and like, but might actually have like a slightly different like value proposition to the consumer, like might make you feel different or might like make your hair feel different or, your friends might be using it and maybe they didn't use the product that was popular before or something like that. But it's also like kind of interesting for me because something that I am really interested in is like, I love like watching the biggest companies in the world and like seeing like what drives them to be successful. And there are two like interesting trends that I've kind of like been watching over the last little while. One is that I've been looking at LVMH as like, a conglomerate group of like the biggest brands in the world. And what I've been trying to like understand is like, what is it that actually makes this company super successful? And like my thinking process has kind of got to this place where I feel like it's like people just like desire drives so much purchasing. So like our desire to feel like we're part of like this like, group of people who can buy expensive handbags or like buy into a lifestyle is like why like LVMH continues to, do really well and grow through all of its businesses. So that's been one interesting one for me. And the other interesting one has been looking at Ozempic and weight loss. So a few weeks ago, Ozempic had like a market cap of like $500 billion, which is crazy. And they overtook LVMH, like the market cap of LVMH. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, wow, like this company literally, like they have one product that they're really well known for, which is like the injection to lose weight. And like they've just taken...
Is it for weight loss or diabetes?
So that's also like really interesting, right? Because it started off, I think it was a drug developed to treat diabetes.
Yes.
But then like that people, like one of the side effects was that it suppressed your appetite.
Yes.
And so now it's a drug, like I think the reason that a lot of the growth has happened is because people use it to treat diabetes, to treat obesity and like being overweight.
Yes.
And so that's like another trend. So I'm kind of like now like my awareness is thinking about like, you know, people in society, living in a society where like by 2030, half of the population will be overweight. And so like, how do we like, and you know, seeing Ozempic on the rise, like what's the business opportunity to actually create, you know, things that help people live a better lifestyle and like can live a healthier lifestyle, maybe without being as invasive as like Ozempic is. So like, what are your thoughts on like trends like that? Like, you know, luxury brands and, you know, weight loss and like all of these companies that are starting to like grow and evolve today.
I feel like there's a few interesting points that you brought up because I feel like with the LVMH is a sense of community, you know, being in that exclusive community. Their marketing is obviously, they've built their brand through this marketing of exclusivity and luxury. So yeah, what you've said about the desire to be in that community is the main selling point. Also with the weight loss tablets, so I started hearing about that. I went to my back specialist and he was like, oh, did you know in Dubai in the US, there's a really popular thing called Ozempic?
Yeah.
But I was like, how do I get that here? And he was like, well, I don't know, it's quite hard to get here. So I actually found a substitute. It was like an online one. But I'm like, I feel like I don't have that much weight to lose, but I'm getting married in about a year, so I was like, I want to shed some of the baby weight. And as a result,
you look amazing, by the way.
Thank you. I just want to get, you know, a little bit more. But yeah, I actually found this tablet and I was like, the fact that I tried so hard online to get this product, it's like, it's not a problem, but there's a demand absolutely for this product. So any products that are problem solving or are driven by that desire to lose weight or to be in an exclusive community, they are always going to be obviously very good businesses.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's also so much room for innovation. Like, you know, we were talking earlier about some of the exciting projects that you're working on at the moment, and like your online course and how well that's been doing. Even like thinking about, you know, some of the topics that we've talked about with weight loss, like how did these worlds of like, you know, what people have learned to consume and like learn to enjoy, like online courses or like, you know, consuming content online, like how does that intersect with the business opportunities that are around us with like societal problems like weight loss? Like I think that's like kind of an interesting space as well, where like no one's really like tackled opportunity there, but it's kind of cool to be able to think about how we help people achieve their goals and add value in like different ways like that. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, actually, now that you bring that up, I feel like people are actually not as willing to spend money on education. Things like education, but they want like a tablet, for example, to lose weight, which is me. That's me. But that is how, like, I feel like it actually is quite hard to break the barrier of getting people to buy education over. I mean, how did you feel about that?
Great question. So my first company, Crimson, is an ed tech business, and we help students get into the best universities in the world. And so I actually I think that, you know, the whole idea of being able to give people value is like the most important thing. And what's really hard is with Crimson, what was really great was people actually got access to like mentors who could work with them one-on-one and coach them through you know, tutoring for different subjects, or like coach them through figuring out what they wanted to do after school. So that like one-on-one interaction, I feel like is so valuable, and people like are willing to invest in getting access to the right people for them. What I think is really interesting is looking at like the statistics around like online learning. So like lots of universities or you know, institutions will run online courses that are just like one-way content delivery for like a year or 2 years. Like you can do an online master's degree. And what's really interesting is like for a 2-year program, completion rates are like 2%. So like lots of people won't get to the end of it. And I think a lot of that comes down to like people being motivated to learn. So like the more practical it is, like if you're doing a course on like building an online business, there's stuff you can actually implement in your everyday. And like you see the benefit of like the new things that you've learned in your world like quite quickly. But I feel like if it's like super theoretical over a long period of time, it's so hard for people to engage. And like with behavior change too, it's so tricky because like we're talking about weight loss, but it's hard for people to be able to learn things theoretically and apply them to their behavior, like, you know, really fast without any external accountability. And so that's why I feel like, you know, things like tablets and injections and procedures are, you know, like people get the result because like they don't have to change their behavior. There's like stuff that like helps them change their behavior along the way. But I also think that like education, like alongside that's quite important for the long term.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I feel
Yeah.
like you're making me think. I'm like, how can I develop my course? Well, yeah, I do.
Really doing a really good job of it.
Yeah, I do understand people want that human element as well of the maybe, you know, like a live Zoom or live events and things like that. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, like I think just like being able to give people a person that they feel like they can engage with is what's important. But at the same time, like literally we live in a world now where you can ask your computer a question on ChatGPT and it will give you an answer like a person would. Like you can literally you can select an option for it to read an answer to you like a person would like answer you, you know, when you ask them a question. So
Does
like,
it do that? I don't know that button.
Oh, it's so interesting. Like there's so much you can do on it, but like, you know, maybe you don't need to have like a Zoom call where you're literally answering questions yourself. Maybe you can like create, you know, an opportunity for an AI to be able to like give people that interaction. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, how often do you reckon you are using AI in your day-to-day work and life?
I think I use AI at least like, I use it every day for sure, but at least like, I'd say maybe like 20 times a day.
Wow.
Like it's literally become a huge part of like me being able to do my best work. And I feel like the reason AI has become so powerful in my everyday is because it gives me a chance to like think more critically about my thought, like think more critically about my thoughts and like the answers that I give to specific problem solving situations, but also like come up with the best answers. Cause like it tells me stuff that would have taken me like maybe, you know, 10 minutes to figure out. But it gives me the answer in like 30 seconds, you know?
Right. And I feel like sometimes it reiterates what you already knew and you already wanted to say, but it kind of just reassures you like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and I know so many people were like, you know, so scared of AI and so scared of like, you know, it removing like our ability, like the need for us to think. But I actually feel like, you know, AI has made me an even better thinker. Like it's made me more critical. It's made me like want to ask why, or like made me, you know, I type into ChatGPT, like, can you explain this more? Or can you give like more reasons why this makes sense? Or can you provide me with like a counter argument to this? And like those types of questions, normally you'd have to have a conversation with someone else. And like maybe that's like a longer conversation than if you're just talking to like your computer and asking it to help you think a little bit better. So I really like, it's like it's been game changing for me.
I agree. I'm using it, I don't know about 20 times a day, but I'd say 5 to 10 times a day at least for scripts or copy, like captions. Like it's really, I feel like it's really improving the efficiency of work, things that I would usually take me, you know, ages. And you just really smooths that process.
Speeds everything up so much.
Yeah, and things like, for example, blog posts, like I don't actually, it's not like a revenue generating thing, but there's a reason people write blog posts for SEO purposes and community building. So for it to assist things like that, which are not necessarily revenue generating, but they're good to have, it's very efficient.
Yeah, it's so good. I think it's also like a really great tool when you're building your team, because like a lot of the time I think when you've got a business that's like really new or like quite early in terms of its growth, you tend to, what I tend to find is that people need a lot of support because there's not as much like, there's not as many systems, there's not as much infrastructure, there's less predictability. But I think having like AI as like a tool, specifically using like ChatGPT as a tool, is such a good way of like logically support, like having a logical support for someone who's new. So like, you know, I have this, someone might come to you and say like, hey, I have this question, or like, what would you do in this scenario? or how should I respond to this customer, or, you know, this is what like a manufacturer said. And like before I give them an answer to that question, what I'd normally be inclined to say is like, okay, like why don't you ask this question to ChatGPT and put in like what your thoughts are, like put in like how you want to respond and the tone, and put in like what you think their concerns are, what needs to be addressed, and then tell me what like your thoughts are on the answer that ChatGPT would give you.
That's really interesting. This is another thing, I'm learning a lot from you, because I feel like right now, anytime I'm going to say one of the hardest things in running a business is managing staff, especially training new staff. Let's say someone leaves, onboarding someone new, and teaching them everything. And traditionally, I'd say Google it, but now maybe ChatGPT it.
Totally, like so powerful. And if like ChatGPT doesn't give you the answer that you like, then like how do you refine it and like make it better?
Yeah, agreed.
So yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Yes.
Like I could be literally like an unpaid person for OpenAI, and like, you know, no one would even know, but I just love it.
I love it too. It's great. I feel like it's definitely changed my working life.
Yeah,
but
so
for the
good.
better. Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
This has been so fun.
I know, it is
we
fun.
should do it again.
Totally.
Yeah, thank you.